We'll just give it another few seconds for people to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, we could get started, and as people join, we'll let them in. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. We're very excited to have this presentation. My name, for those of you who don't know me, is Ira Finn. I'm with the HR department at RSG, and we are rolling out some tools that we want to help regarding mental well-being. And as one of those tools, we want to introduce the Lakeview Health team and have this webinar today to talk to you about, specifics that are near and dear to my heart and to all of our hearts, not only now during the pandemic, but all the time. So I'm going to turn it over to Judy from Lakeview Health, and we'll kick off the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ira, and thank you everyone for joining. A couple of housekeeping tips as we get started. We will have time at the end of the presentation for you to ask questions. Feel free to post those in the chat if you would like. We also will have an email address posted at the end if you have questions after the presentation or would like to email your question to the presenter rather than posting in the chat. And today's presentation is being conducted by Philip Warwick, who is a licensed mental health professional. He is the director of the STAR Men's Program at Lakeview Health. He earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Central Florida, a master's degree in mental health counseling from the University of South Florida, and began his career treating medical professionals in an inpatient setting. We also have Daniel Kreitz, who is an exercise specialist. Daniel received his Bachelor of Science degree from Fairmont University, and he's a certified personal trainer. He helped to develop the programming for Lakeview Health and works closely with our patients and our staff. And working with our patients, he also coordinates very closely with our medical physicians and our physical therapists to treat patients that are in the pain recovery track. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Philip and let him share with us how we can improve mental health during a pandemic.
Thank you very much, Judy. I do appreciate the introduction for myself and for Daniel. So I just wanted to, before I jump into the presentation, go over a couple of things that Judy kind of mentioned, and I'll just reiterate. I've done a number of these presentations virtually like we're doing here today, and I've also done a lot of face-to-face presentations. And I do like to have that kind of back and forth with you all, and it being virtual, it's a little more difficult to have that back and forth. That's why we're going to hold the questions till the end, and myself and Daniel will be able to stick around, and we should have plenty of time. The way this presentation is paced, we should have plenty of time at the end to be able to go back and forth and answer any questions you may have related to the presentation or anything really related to mental health or physical health that you guys just are interested in learning a little bit more about. Now, while this presentation covers a lot of the implications and effects of COVID-19 and its impact on the workplace and and how it's led to an increase in mental health issues and substance use disorder issues around the country, it can also be applied in different ways. This presentation can also be applied in different ways too. What I mean by that is, if your workplace is, going through general changes or restructuring or positions or anything like that, a lot of those changes can spark anxiety or, again, mental health issues. And a lot of the things that we talk about throughout this presentation can be applied to changes like that too, in a way to reduce those symptoms and just give you all overall more well-being. Healthy well-being. So keep that in mind as I go through the presentation. Just to give a little bit of an outline, what I'm going to do first is just cover some topics related to COVID-19 and the impact that it's had on workplace. I have some statistics in there that talk about some of the changes that we've seen over the last 6 to 8 months as a result of COVID-19. And then I'll turn it over to Daniel, who's going to spend some time demonstrating some exercises that can be done at home to really help reduce some of those symptoms and allow you to continue to exercise while you, if you're working from home, for example. And then lastly, I'm going to go over a couple really simple therapeutic techniques that you can use that you don't need to be guided on or anything like that, that you can use independently that are really, really, again, simple, but also beneficial in reducing some of those symptoms that a lot of us are experiencing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, we'll jump right into the first slide. And what we have here is a lot of the headlines that we've been seeing since the beginning of the pandemic. And I won't read them all out for you, but just as an example, half of Americans suffering mental health issues during coronavirus, new poll shows. A lot of different headlines. One interesting thing that I have noticed with all of the headlines that we've been seeing is there's been a lot of contradiction back and forth with the headlines. As this pandemic has been politicized, it has gotten a lot more difficult to find trustworthy news sources out there to be able to follow to learn the best approach to dealing with the pandemic. And so what that means is we're left with a lot of unknowns. So while there are all these contradictory headlines in the news, we don't know what the best option is to protect ourselves, to protect our families, to protect our loved ones. That's, of course, going to result in an increase in mental health issues. And what we've also seen is a huge increase in substance use disorder as a result of all of this confusion surrounding the pandemic. Now, one thing that we really thought that we would see as we got further and further into creating a plan is we thought we'd see more consistency with the efforts to combat the pandemic. Although what we've actually found, though, is over time there continues to be a lot of inconsistency. And so what that means is that anxiety we were experiencing in the beginning has not gone away. If anything, it's increased a little bit as we try to find ourselves getting more confused, trying to identify what the best option is for protecting ourselves and our loved ones again. A few other things that I want to talk about that are related to this slide is the data on prevalence. So how states are reporting COVID-19 infections, including mortality rates, differ from state to state. And so there's a lot of inconsistency with how those numbers are reported and with the methods that they use to report those. That again adds to the confusion that we're experiencing as a community and as a culture when it comes to handling the pandemic. Now, all of this leads to something that's kind of a very important umbrella point that I want to make. One of the biggest things that can lead to an increase in or a decrease in overall well-being is isolation and a lack of ability to connect with others. And one thing that we can all relate to during this pandemic is that we have had to distance ourselves in one way or another from the people that we have been in close contact with for the majority of our lives. So family members are forced to isolate from one another, friends are forced to isolate from one another. And what this causes, again, it causes that lack of ability to connect with the people around us. And that's going to lead to some severe mental health issues, including that increase in anxiety and increase in depressive symptoms, which is what we have seen happen pretty consistently since the beginning of this pandemic. And actually, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that as we roll on to the next slide here. We have some statistics about mental health following COVID-19. First being 30% of Americans experience a decline in mental health right now as a result of COVID-19. 45% of adults feel COVID stress has negatively affected mental health. And more than 50% of Americans worry about getting infected by COVID, losing their job, or the financial impact of COVID-19. So COVID has in effect created a perfect storm for worsening mental health in the majority of people's lives. One thing that is worth mentioning here is that we are really built around the idea of routine and structure. Human beings in general thrive in a routine and structured environment. So when something like COVID-19 comes into existence and takes over a population, it really destroys that routine and structure that we've worked so hard to develop in each of our lives. And that breakdown in routine and structure is where we see the big dip in the mental health for a lot of individuals going through the pandemic right now. Now, an interesting parallel that is worth noting is a hurricane. It's a comparison we can do. So I live here in Jacksonville, Florida, and of course, every year we have to prepare for hurricane season, and it's always a big deal, making sure that we are prepared. Now, the big difference between a hurricane and something like the COVID-19 pandemic is that with a hurricane, we have ample warning for when a hurricane is going to be approaching us. We usually have, say, 5 to 7 days, maybe a week-long notice before a hurricane is going to hit the Jacksonville area. So while there is an increase in stress as the hurricane gets closer, we pretty much know what to expect. If you've lived in Florida for long enough, like I have, you've lived through enough hurricanes to know how to prepare effectively. You got to go to the store and get all the water. Go make sure that you have the all the batteries that you're going to need. Make sure you have a flashlight for if the power goes out. And of course, you can come home and put the flashlight in the drawer with your 1,000 other flashlights that you bought from years past that rarely get any use, but still safe to have around. But the point being, you know that you know what to expect and you can prepare for it. And so while a hurricane can disrupt structure and routine, even in preparing for a hurricane, I know my routine for preparing for a hurricane. And so it's not nearly as stressful as something like COVID-19, where I had no clue what to expect. There are so many unknowns that still exist today related to COVID-19 that and those unknowns create a lot of that so much of that anxiety. Very few people anticipated and knew how to prepare effectively for COVID-19. And again, that highlights the fear and anxiety that uncertainty can cause in a pandemic like this. So I'm going to go over, on the next slide here, I'm going to go over a couple statistics related to substance abuse prevalence, and then I will be able to relate those back to COVID-19 and demonstrate some of the changes that we've seen in the last, again, 6 to 8 months as a result of COVID-19. So first, an annual average of 8.7% of full-time workers aged 18 to 64 use alcohol heavily, meaning they have a mild, moderate, or severe substance use disorder. Almost 74% of adults suffering from a substance use disorder in 2017 struggled with an alcohol use disorder. And so I know that there is, and this is an interesting statistic, because a lot of news outlets and a lot of people around the country obviously keep the focus on the opioid epidemic that's going on. And of course, that is a huge issue that we are addressing, especially at Lakeview on a daily basis. But when you really look and you break down the numbers, we still see how alcohol use disorder is such a huge problem in the United States. About 38% of adults in 2017 battled with an illicit drug use disorder. And in 2017, 8.5 million American adults suffered from both a mental health disorder and a substance use disorder or co-occurring disorders. So we call that, again, co-occurring disorders when you have maybe a substance use disorder and a generalized anxiety disorder. And what will happen is they'll kind of feed off of one another. As you get more anxious, you obviously would drink more to mask that anxiety, and then it can kind of go back and forth as you develop a tolerance and dive deeper or dig that hole deeper into addiction. So those are some basic statistics on just the prevalence of substance abuse prior to COVID-19. And what we're going to look at is how these statistics have changed a little bit since COVID-19 has really got its grasp on the United States. But if we go to the next slide, we can see that online alcohol sales specifically are up 243% since the start of the pandemic. The National Emotional Distress Hotline has seen an increase in calls of almost 900%. That is a huge statistic and a huge jump from prior to the start of the pandemic. 36% of men and 24% of women claim that they are drinking during work hours. That's an interesting statistic because working from home, there's a lot less accountability, and it's a lot easier to sneak a drink or something like that. And so we're seeing a big increase of people working from home and being able to drink alcohol. There are over 2 million Americans who suffer from opiate use disorders and are at risk for overdose in the United States right now. So we still see how that opioid epidemic is causing huge problems, and how with the pandemic surging in the United States, how it's created a heightened risk for overdose for those patients or for those people who are struggling with the opioid use disorders. What's interesting is an adjustment that has been made, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. An adjustment that's been made by a lot of retailers and a lot of restaurants out in the community is that in order to stay in business, we've seen changes in how they provide services to their customers. And so, for an example, it's a lot easier now to get alcohol delivered to your home since a lot of the restaurants are closed and they're only open for takeout. And so they'll deliver alcohol drinks to your home, alcoholic beverages to your home. So you don't have to leave the house even to have drinks delivered to you. Now, I say it's a double-edged sword because I know that restaurants are obviously struggling to survive, and so they have to do what they can to be able to stay in business and keep their employees paid. And so I see why they're doing these things. But for people who struggle with substance use disorders or who struggle with other mental health issues, getting alcohol delivered from home can increase that or exacerbate that addiction quite a bit as well. So we see both sides on that one. If we look at the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about physical health and the importance of making sure that we're staying active even while working from home. I'm going to turn it over to Dan here in a second, but I do want to talk about this slide. And Dan's going to again go over some stretches and some really, really unique exercises that you can do from home that will benefit you in quite a few different ways. And he's also going to speak to some of the eating habits that we can use while working, or excuse me, some of the eating habits we can adjust to while we're working from home. But because individuals get out less during this pandemic, it is so important that we find unique ways to stay active. The quarantine has caused many people to move a lot less. So you can stay active in your own home in, again, very unique ways. Eating habits impact mood more than you think, and sleep restores the body. The one thing that I want to say about this slide before I turn it over to Dan here is that in terms of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard in the past, at our very, very, very basic level, the fundamental need that every human being is required to have in their lives is enough sleep, enough hydration, and enough food. And so this pandemic has caused people's eating habits to get out of whack, people's sleep schedules to get out of whack. And without some structure and routine with our eating habits and with our sleeping habits, it can have a huge impact on our ability to function effectively throughout the day. So making sure that we're finding ways to get our 8 hours of sleep each night and to eat 3 meals consistently is so important to maintaining mental well-being. And I know that seems so simple, and we've heard that a million times, but since the start of this, and I can attest that I have fallen victim to this myself. It is so easy to either skip a meal or eat a bunch of snacks or kind of do meal replacement things that can really, really affect your overall mental health. So again, making sure that we're eating healthy and we're getting that sleep is just so fundamental. It's so important during this pandemic. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel, who's actually going to speak a little bit more to that, and then again go over some of these exercises with you guys.
Thank you, Phil. Like you said, my name is Daniel. I work here at the Wellness Center. Unlike Phil, I have not done many of these videos, so I'm going to try not to mess it up too much. So kind of bear with me as we go along. But I'm going to take you into the first slide of the benefits of exercise. So a lot of people tend to not realize the benefits of exercise. Benefits of exercise attest to more than just like physical appearance. Everyone always thinks like, oh, it's physical appearance. That's all it's for. No, it helps a lot with like internal issues. It helps a lot with mental issues, emotional things like that. Exercise helps with more than just your physical health. It helps a lot in managing anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, tiredness, lack of focus, all these things. And when you're sitting at home, even if your job is a sit down at a desk type of job, you're not very active. Or you're more active than when you just sit at home. So keeping these rhythms going, just like Phil said, keeping a routine going is very, very important. So in the first exercise, or the first slide I'm going to take you through is going to be dynamic stretches. I'm going to try to make sure I'm still visible here. Cool deal. All right, so we're going to go into some of the dynamic stretches. So on the dynamic slide, the first one I have is jumping jacks. Pretty much well, everyone knows what a jumping jack looks like. But in case you don't, it's simply out and in, right like that. Now, a lot of people tend to have injuries and stuff, so the jumping can be hard on hips, knees, and things like that. You can focus on step out, come up, step out, come up. Simply being active like that will make a world of difference. The next one that I have on there is butt kickers. And it's pretty much well like it sounds. You just kind of hop, keep your legs back like this. The next one that I have is high knees. And again, pretty much well how it sounds. You have your knees up like that. The final one, the next one I have is squat jumps. And you simply squat down and go up. Squat down and go up. Now, and the final one is burpees. Everyone loves burpees. Burpees can also be commonly called up downs. Go down, go out to the floor, come up, and jump. Now, a good modification for this one, if you have problems going to the floor and up, because this can be a little bit intense, is you simply go down, you can step back, hop forward, and stand up. The importance of dynamic stretching is that it gets blood flowing. You did this, say, 10 times of each and went through it 3 rounds, this could be a very good cardiovascular exercise. A lot of people think that cardio is simply going outside and running, things like that. Dynamic stretches can be more than that. This is something that you can do at home. On the next slide, I'm going to show you some body weight exercises that you do. Body weight exercises is anything that you use your body weight for resistance. First one I'm going to start with is squats. Take a good solid stance, your weight towards your heels, and you go down. Make sure that your weight doesn't shift forward and your heels come up off the ground, because that can put pressure on your knees. If you have problems with knees, you can still do squats. You just want to make sure you keep your weight towards your heels. A good thing to test to make sure that you're going low enough, squats, is to use, say, the couch, kitchen table, coffee table, something like that. The idea is just go down, cut your butt to it, stand up. I think I have it down for 20. The next one that I have is push-ups. And push-ups, you can do more, you can do less. Push-ups are simply this. You go down and come up. If these are too difficult, that's okay. You simply put your knees on the ground, go down like this. Modify. If that one is still too difficult, put your hands on a couch, coffee table, or something like that. It'll put your body at an angle. This will make it easier for you. It's not so much of am I capable of doing it, it's you want to build up to. Next one is lunges. Take a solid stance and you step out. You go down like you're taking it. Come back. And come back. You can do these all in a little small stationary space. You want to try to get like 10 on each leg. The idea with lunges, though, is that you don't want to bang your knee on the ground. You just want to go down under control, back. Go as low as you can. The idea is to try to touch the ground, barely. But if you can't get down that low, that's fine. Doing something is better than doing nothing. The next one I have is dumbbell rows. So you can do dumbbell rows now, and I'll touch a little bit on like different equipment. Dumbbell rows is simply where you bend over like this, keep your back nice and flat. You're going to hold a weight. It could be a book bag or anything like that, with gallon milk jugs or something. Simply pull it up and down, and this will help strengthen that back area. Finally, we touch on some core exercises. Plank. Take a good, solid position right here like this, and you just hold it. If you've ever wanted to slow time down on a plank for a period, we'll slow time down. If this is too difficult, you simply drop down to your knees, keeping your body in a nice straight line. The next one that we have is crunches. So with crunches, you don't want to sit all the way up, and you do not want to hook your hands and pull on your neck. Cross your arms here or cup your ears, and you just come up as high as you can, down. As you can see, it's a short range of motion, but it will still target the abs, and this will also protect the back. A lot of people have back issues. This will protect that lower back area. Final one that I have is Superman's. Arms out straight, legs out straight, and just like Superman flies, you raise all four up and down, up and down. This one targets the lower back muscles right parallel to the spine, where a lot of people tend to have a lot of. If you did this, this would probably take you about 20 minutes. So depend upon how quickly you move through them, how fast you go, how fast you don't go, really up to the individual. And that's a simple 20-minute body weight workout in rows. The next slide that I have is going to be your static stretches. Static stretches are anything that you hold for a period of time. You would usually do this at the end of the workout. Static stretch is where they bring your arm across like, or you bring your leg up here, hold it a period of time. On the static stretches slide that I have, ideally you want to hold it for about 30 seconds to help stretch out sore muscles. If you want to hold it longer for a yoga experience, you would simply hold it there for about a minute to a minute and a half. Don't know that I see myself. I think everyone's still in here, so we're going to continue. But anyway, static stretches, a lot of people get really stiff on the computer doing a lot of their work, calls from home, things like that. You want to make sure you're including some stretches because you get stiff. You get that achy feeling when you come up. You want to continue to do your stretches. If you don't do your stretches on a regular basis, this causes a lot of tightness, and this will usually cause pains in back, shoulders, and areas like that. On the next slide, you want to kind of get creative with your exercises. A lot of people tend to like, oh, well, I don't have weights, I can't do it. You don't necessarily need weights. I showed you a bunch of exercises that you can do with body weight. But if you want to have some sort of equipment to use, the best one to do would be you could order resistance bands off of Amazon, eBay, anywhere you get it online, really. The next thing that you could do is gallon jugs of water. Those work really great. or even 5-gallon buckets, because you can fill it up with so much water and you put it on a scale and you get 10 pounds, 15 pounds, whatever it may be. You can pour out water to make it lighter, add water to make it heavier. You can do a lot of different exercises. So you can do like holding a gallon jug of oil to water, squat down with the gallon of jug. You can do basic bicep curls or tricep extensions with a gallon of jug. You can even use, and again, if gallon jugs is a little difficult for you, you can even go to things like cans of beans or something like that. Start out simple, make sure you feel comfortable with it, and then go from there. And like I was saying, exercise plays a big role in how we feel, both mentally, physically. It gives you that confidence and wake up and be ready to take on the day. It helps with a lot of things like anxiety, the depression, the sleeplessness, to focus. It'll help regulate sleep patterns. And when everyone's working from home, they tend to kind of fall off of that routine. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to go over a little bit of the importance of nutrition. A lot of people think that nutrition isn't necessarily super important. It is. It's very important. Nutrition really affects how your mood feels, how you handle the day, like that. And kind of touching on what Phil said earlier, it's really difficult if you're working from home. It's very easy to lose track of time. Next thing you know, you're looking at your phone and it's 3 o'clock. You skipped lunch 3 hours ago. You're wondering why your stomach's growling. Get caught up doing what you're doing. And that's very easy to do. I always suggest setting a timer. As a phone on them, if you set a timer for every 4 hours or alarms at 8 a.m., 12, 3, and 6 at night, when it goes off, hey, I got to eat. It doesn't necessarily have to be large, but you want to consider your body of nutrition. It doesn't function properly. You kind of start running on fumes. Nutrition is very important. And finally, I want to talk to you a little bit all on healthy ideas. Healthy snacks is snacks you want to snack on in between. Now, make sure you're not making this a meal. You want this to be a snack, something in between. Myself is guilty of this as well. Getting a can of peanuts, and I would only eat some of them. 20 minutes later, I'm scraping the bottom of the can. You want to try to avoid doing that in excess. Healthy snack ideas would be things like fruit, small sizes of fruit, apple, oranges, grapes, things like that. Peanuts, pistachios, things like that. Cheese, crackers, even like pepperoni, different meats you can add. This is just something to kind of hold you over until you get to that meal, but you want to make sure that you're snacking on healthier things. A lot of people during this pandemic find themselves snacking on Doritos and ice cream, Ben & Jerry's, all those sorts of things. Like I said, myself included, but you want to make sure that you're keeping yourself in check. You want to make sure that you're keeping yourself in control of what you're snacking on. Because if you're constantly eating processed foods, really fatty foods, it's going to affect your mood. You're going to find yourself feeling very sluggish, very tired throughout the day, having problems keeping thought, focus, things like that. So all of these go hand in hand, and I can't express that enough. Make sure that you're giving yourself food. A lot of people tend to have 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day, especially adults that I've worked with. And I always use the analogy, if you were doing that with a child, I don't think it would be acceptable. So your body is really not that much different, except for it's older. Pretty much what? You still need nutritional value. If anything, you need more nutrients than children do. So you want to make sure that you're eating plenty throughout the day. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Phil. I believe that's the last slide I'm on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel, for doing that. And I did, I'm going to jump into some of these real simple techniques that you all can use from a clinical standpoint to, again, help reduce some of the symptoms related to anxiety and depression and other things like that. But before I jump into that, I did want to share a little bit, a small story, I guess, about my life prior to COVID-19 and then coming into COVID-19. And kind of Daniel made me think about it while he was doing those exercises there. Earlier this year, January, February, and then for the majority of 2019, I was working out pretty much Monday through Friday in the gym that Daniel was just doing those exercises in while he was training me. So he was my personal trainer, and we would do an exercise group during my lunch hour. He would offer that. And so I was getting a good amount of a good workout in every day, Monday through Friday, for almost probably a year and a couple months. And I was feeling very good, and I was feeling energized, and I was feeling healthy. And then the pandemic hit, and I was forced to start working from home. And I really wasn't thinking about the impact of that workout and how much it was doing for my overall well-being. And so a couple months into COVID-19, I found myself feeling very down, very, very low energy. I just overall wasn't as happy, and I couldn't really figure out what was going on. And then it dawned on me, and you think I would have figured it out earlier, being a therapist, but it dawned on me that I wasn't getting that exercise that I was getting every day prior to that. And so I've really had to force myself into that new routine of during my lunch hour, I forced myself to get up, go outside and go on a long walk around the neighborhood prior to coming back. And even just something simple like that has really just made a huge difference in my ability to function at a higher level throughout the day. I've gotten a lot of my energy back. I feel happier. And I just overall, I feel much better. And so that's a little bit of a story of how it's affected me personally. And I can't stress that the importance of that exercise and just doing something for yourself on a daily basis to really get some of that structure and routine back in your life. So Daniel, I appreciate you sharing all that. It's really good stuff. And I think hopefully everybody can use at least some of those exercises. I know I'll be able to incorporate some of them as well. So what we're going to do now is jump into this grounding exercise. I have two exercises here that I wanted to review, and we're doing okay on time, but I do want to pace through this just to make sure we have time for questions at the end as well. The first exercise that you see on the screen here is a grounding exercise. We use this when we're experiencing a lot of anxiety symptoms, racing thoughts, ideas that we just can't get out of our head, things like that. The point of a grounding exercise is to bring you into the present moment. You're aware of where you're at and what's going on around you in the present moment. And if you can do that, oftentimes it will help relieve those racing thoughts and some of those other symptoms of anxiety that you may be experiencing. This grounding exercise, in fact, is a great one that you can do independently. And while I'm going to walk us through how to do it here today, it's not a necessity to have somebody walk you through it. You can easily do this independently in your home. It takes a couple minutes to do. It's super simple. So I'll go ahead and get started with it. The first thing that we want to do, and if you guys want to participate at home, you're more than welcome to participate in this. You just have to basically follow my directions as we go through it. If you don't feel like trying it out now, that's fine. But I do recommend trying it out at some point, as I use this particular grounding exercise. I use pretty frequently in my life. It's just a good way to help relax when I'm feeling a little stressed. It's not required to be super anxious to use this. You can use this if you're just feeling a little stressed and you want to kind of decompress for a second. This can be a great exercise to do. So the way we're going to start is I'm going to count us out with some breaths. We're going to do in and out for 5 seconds. So we're going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, as I continue to talk through this grounding exercise, I want you to continue to doing deep breaths in and out for about 5-second holds. To begin, look around your room and identify and name 5 things you can see. You do not need to name them out loud, just name them to yourself. 5 specific things that you can see around your room. Next, I'd like you to look around and identify and name 4 things you can feel. Any 4 things you can feel around you. Look around you and identify and name 3 things you can hear. 3 distinct things you can hear. Maybe the humming of your air conditioner or a car as it passes by. Next, I'd like you to look around and identify and name 2 things that you can smell. Maybe lunch that you had just cooked. Last, I'd like you to look around and identify and name 1 thing that you can taste. Take a few more deep breaths in and out. All right. So again, that is a very, very simple grounding exercise. For those of you that were participating at home, again, it's a little hard to tell how many people are actually participating or not, but for those of you that were participating at home, hopefully you got something out of that. But if not, or if you didn't participate, this is still a wonderful, wonderful exercise that I do challenge all of you to at least try at some point. I mean, again, you don't need somebody like me walking you through it. It's pretty simple to do. And it really does a wonderful job of just, bringing you into the present moment and reminding you of where you're at and what's going on around you in the here and now, so you can kind of escape everything that's going on inside your mind. It's a very, very, very popular grounding exercise. All right, the next one that we have is called the 4 sensations. This is on the next slide. And again, it's a similar exercise. You'll see what I mean in terms of the purpose being to ground us and bring us into the present moment. So again, this really helps when we're struggling with panic attacks or increase in stress or anxiety or anything like that. So I'm just going to read through this one. Again, feel free to participate if you're willing. If not, you can at least try this in your own time and see if you can get something out of it. So again, we're going to begin with just some deep breaths in and out, slowly breathing in and out. Try to continue taking deep breaths as we go through this exercise. First, please close your eyes or lower your eyelids. Then slowly touch your face, arm, or hand. You touching the rest of this exercise. Focus on the body part's temperature. Is it warm or cold? Then focus on the pressure of your touch. Is it light or firm? Now focus on the texture of your skin. Is it smooth or rough? Finally, focus on the presence or absence of moisture. Is it dry or is there some moisture? Just try to relax into the sensation that you are feeling. Take a few more breaths, in for 5 and out for 5. Alrighty. So that's a 4 sensations grounding exercise. I've used this one quite a few times as well. I do prefer the first exercise, the 5 senses. I use that one more often. They're both very, very effective. The point of me telling you that I like one over the other is that sometimes you have to try a couple different exercises until you find one that you really find works for you. So if something doesn't work for you, don't just give up. Keep trying some other techniques, and you can always find something that's going to help to reduce some of those symptoms for you, okay? All right. I appreciate y'all for participating in that. For those of you that did, we only have a couple slides left, and so I'm just going to take maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to go through them real quick, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So the last thing one of the last things I wanted to talk about is using perspectives, and this is a very, very common therapeutic technique. It's another way to look at it is reframing. I'm sure a lot of us have heard the is the glass half empty or half full approach, and kind of determining how you're looking at a particular issue. And so I want to show you what reframing or using perspectives looks like in action here. So if we go to the next slide, we have the example of being stuck in traffic. And for a lot of people, being stuck in traffic can cause anxiety, can cause anger, aggression, can cause you to get upset and maybe use a swear word or whatever the case may be. Another way that we can reframe that is looking at being stuck in traffic as an opportunity to maybe listen to some of your favorite music or catch up on a podcast that you've fallen behind on, or call a friend that you haven't spoken to in a while, something like that. So being able to kind of reframe a situation, especially one as difficult as being stuck in traffic, because I know a lot of us can relate to frustration of being stuck in traffic, and changing it into something that's positive, like, okay, well, this gives me an opportunity now to listen to the podcast that I've been wanting to catch up on. And then you'll be able to listen to the whole podcast. So changing something from a negative into a positive. And you can really do this with any issue. Even if something really negative happens in your life, you can still say, okay, so what can I gain from this issue that's occurred? What is the lesson I can learn from this? What is the change I can implement in my life to make a better outcome in the future? And if you're able to do that, then you can turn even a bad situation into something that's positive because you're able to gain such a big piece out of it. The other example is comparing yourself to people on social media. As we all are aware, Facebook and Twitter and all those places tend to show everybody in the best light. And so it's easy to start comparing yourself to other people and saying, oh my gosh, my life's not as good or as glamorous as so-and-so's life. The goal would be obviously to not compare yourself to other people, because comparing yourself to other people does nothing for your current situation. So who should you be comparing yourself to is the question. And if you look at it from that perspective, you should say, maybe if I compare myself to who I was a day ago, a week ago, a month ago. And if you can do that and you can see progress that you've made in your life, then you can start to build an increase in confidence, an increase in self-efficacy, and it can really make positive changes in your life. So again, instead of comparing yourself to other people, we try and compare ourselves to who we were yesterday or a month ago or a year ago, with the hope that we can see progress that we've made in our lives since then, and again, build up our confidence level. That's a very, very common tool to use in order to build up confidence in one's own abilities. The last slide that we have that I'm going to cover, I'm just going to cover it real quick here, is 5 daily tips for improving mental health. First one being, be intentional. Set 3 small goals each day. Write them down, cross them off your list at the end of the day. I'm telling y'all, I have a calendar that I keep, and I write down everything that I need to do. And then one of the favorite parts of my day is when I get to check all of these things off of my list. And I know it seems silly, but there's something very satisfying about even small tasks, achieving small tasks and being able to check them off your list. So being intentional is very important for improving mental health. Little things like this can go a long way. Self-care, do something nice for yourself each day. Go on a walk, spend time with your pets, your dog, your cat. Do something nice for yourself. Take yourself out to get a manicure or a pedicure, whatever it is, for self-care. It is so important for staying positive and improving overall well-being. Give back. Doing something nice for someone else is a simple way to allow yourself to feel good. So always being intentional and really seeking out ways to help other people. A gratitude list can be a really positive and powerful tool to use. And then lastly, spending at least 30 minutes each day away from technology. And I know that's something that I probably struggle with. So finding time each day to really focus on either family or just something completely unrelated to technology can be a really way to refresh and kind of restart your day. So I do encourage I encourage all of you to try some of these daily tips for improving mental health, and hopefully you'll see some real positive results. But that ends the presentation. I don't think we have any more slides after this. Judy, did you want to say a couple things?
Yes, thank you very much. It was very helpful information that you presented. I'm sure everybody found that to be so. And we would like at this time to be able to open up for questions, and you can put them into the chat and we will read them off. You also will notice that my email address is up here. And if you have questions for the presenters that you would prefer to email in, and I can get them to the appropriate presenter and have them to respond to your questions that way. Also want to remind you that your employer, RSG, provides an employee assistance program, an EAP, for your benefit. And EAPs are a free benefit to you and confidential. So we really want to encourage you that if you've heard something today that you know is an area that you would like to work on further, that is a great resource that RSG is providing to you, and there's no cost for those services. So we did have one question come in while you guys were presenting, and now's the time while they address this that if you have a question, type it into the chat and I will read it off to them. The question that we have is, do I do all of these exercises every day? And Daniel, I would probably like to add to that if you're somebody that maybe since COVID or even prior are not exercising, with the exercises, how would you start in addition to, is it something that you do every day?
It's really going to depend on the individual and at what level they are. I don't really like to give everyone's individually. I don't like to give cookie cutter answer that really applies. But what I would do is I would start with what I felt comfortable with and capable of. It should be challenging. You should be a little short of breath. You should be able to have as easy as conversation as you and I are having right now. But it shouldn't be like life alert type of thing, if that makes sense. And doing it every day, again, it depends on what level of fitness that you feel that you're at. For starters, I would start with twice a week, because you're going to get sore, especially if you haven't worked out in a while and you wanted to start picking this up. I would start once a week, then go to twice a week, 3 times a week, and then go from there. I would not do 7 days a week, because you do need to give your body time to heal. It does need rest. So I would kind of limit it to like 5 or 6 days a week. But if you are really bent on doing something on that off day, go outside and go for a walk. So you can still be active, letting the body heal, but not overzealous and just breaking down the muscle more and more.
Good feedback, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody else is being shy, not typing in their question. We are getting a lot of or several people that have typed in how much they appreciate the information and that it's very helpful. So that's always nice to hear. Thank you guys very much for that positive feedback. But now is your chance to have an exercise specialist and a mental health therapist to answer any of those questions that you have. Okay, they're telling me that there's a question and I am not seeing it. So the question is, what are EPS? And I'm not sure what that means. EAPs. Okay, sorry, she was texting me because I couldn't see it. So the question is, what are EAPs? And I guess I will take that since I've been doing EAP for a long time. I'm a certified employee assistance professional. So I won't put Philip on the spot. EAP is Employee Assistance Program, and they are a program that provides free assessment, counseling, and some other ancillary services to help employees and their families deal with issues that may be causing them stress. They are programs that are offered through the workplace, so they're 100% paid for by the employer, and they are completely confidential. They are covered by HIPAA regulations, so the employer doesn't get a report of who is using the service. And that's something that sometimes causes people to be a little bit hesitant, just knowing that even though it's a program that's provided by the employer, it's done so in a way that the employer doesn't know the employees or the dependents that are utilizing the program. And they can help in areas, in addition to counseling, they can help put together a treatment plan to address an issue. They very often offer services related to, financial consultation, legal consultation, elder care, child care, just some of those issues that we all deal with from time to time. And I always tell people that it's a lot of times thinking of it in terms of the issues that we deal with day to day, that maybe we could white knuckle it through, or we can go to somebody that's experienced that before, that has helped other people through that issue or similar, and maybe can do it and help you to share with you things that other people have done that has been successful, resources that are available that we might not know about. So hopefully that answers that question. If it didn't, email me. I'll send you some more information. I'm not seeing any other questions come through. I'll ask my other moderator to make sure there's not anything that I am missing. Okay, so we think that is...
I see something, any tips on how to create healthy daily separation between yourself and your significant other now that you're both working from home and we don't have that time in the office, which was away from home? So the idea of I just can't wait to get home isn't around as much.
Mm-hmm.
So I could speak to that.
Okay.
I could speak to that a little bit. I do appreciate you asking that question because it's something that I've heard over and over again as family members or as significant other spouses are both working from home. And what I've found in speaking with these people is that you can still create a level of separation. And I'll even use an example of my own life. We have two separate rooms that we use as two separate offices, a guest room and an office, and we're able to work independently in those environments so that we aren't kind of in the same room all the time. I mean, it's very true that relationships, there needs to be space in relationships as well. And so little things that you can do, even some of those self-care things, like I said, going on a walk during your lunch hour to get out of the house, doing that by yourself, or doing some of these exercises in the backyard while you enjoy the fresh air by yourself can be a way to kind of create some of that space and allow and allow yourself to kind of escape a little bit. You're definitely not alone in feeling that. And I appreciate you bringing it up. But any of those little tips that myself or Daniel were speaking about can be done independently. And when you do those things independently, again, that can help to solve some of those issues. But healthy boundaries at home with your work hours and work environment can be very important. And you have to find unique ways to do it in this environment right now.
And to kind of add on to what Phil just said, all those body weight exercises, that routine, you can leave the house to go to a park and do, and that'll give you that like space away, that like your bubble to kind of go to. You don't have to necessarily do those exercises at home. It's really not that difficult to pack a couple resistance bands and milk jugs and take it to a park or a private area. And even most complexes have like outdoor things and stuff like that you can also go to kind of get that privacy and that you time.
Great. And last question and answer. We're running over a little bit. We need to let everybody get back to work so that doesn't become a stressor. Question if the EAP covers weight loss. And from RFN, he is saying that if you are in the RSG medical plan, that Blue Cross has some great tools for weight loss assistance, and you can go to their website to access those. So thank you again, Philip and Daniel, for a wonderful presentation today. Thank you to all of RSG for joining us today, for the great questions, great comments. We appreciate hearing that it was good information for you, and look forward to providing additional webinars for you in the future.